The fluorescent lights of San Francisco International Airport cast shadows across Terminal 3. Outside, December snow fell in thick flakes, unusual for the Bay Area but fitting for the storm in Marcus Thompson's chest. At 32, Marcus commanded boardrooms with precision. His Armani suit spoke of success earned through sleepless nights. Thomson Technologies had closed Series C funding, marking him as Silicon Valley's voice in ethical AI. Yet his hands trembled gripping his iPhone, displaying a reminder that made his stomach clench. Court hearing. Boston. Family custody case. Marcus lifted his cold coffee when something across the waiting area stopped his world. There, on a bench near Gate 15, was David Chen, unmistakable even with longer hair and loose clothes on his thinner frame. But it wasn't just David that made Marcus's heart hammer. It was the two infants sleeping in David's arms, wrapped in gray blankets. Marcus wondered if exhaustion had broken his mind. 3 years of searching, hiring investigators, checking design firms from Seattle to Los Angeles, and David had vanished like morning fog over the Golden Gate. Now here he sat, 20 yards away, cradling babies who couldn't be more than 6 months old. Memory rushed back to heated arguments in his Pacific Heights penthouse, late nights at UCSF fertility clinic, David's hands sketching nursery designs while they planned a future solid as the Bay Bridge. Dr. Sarah Kim assured them the IVF was successful, genetic material preserved. They'd chosen names, bought cribs, debated whether Mandarin or Korean would be their children's first language. Then David disappeared, leaving only a resignation letter and lavender soap scent in Marcus's empty home, studying the sleeping infants. Marcus noticed details that tightened his chest. One baby's hand escaped the blanket, tiny fingers displaying a birthmark identical to Marcus's own. Hair caught the artificial light, revealing the stubborn cowlick that plagued Marcus since childhood. Marcus stood, legal briefs forgotten. His legs felt unsteady crossing the terminal. Each step brought answers he'd desperately sought for years. David's face carried new lines speaking of unimaginable struggles. His Portland Art Institute hoodie was faded, sleeves revealing leaner arms. But his expression held that peaceful quality that first drew Marcus. Sometimes the people we think we've lost forever appear when we need them most. Subscribe to Heart Stories for more powerful tales. David's eyes fluttered open at the sound of his name, confusion clouding his features before shock took hold. His arms instinctively tightened around the twins as he struggled to sit upright, the baby stirring but not waking. Marcus, his voice barely steady, "You can't take them from me." Those were David's first words, spoken with the fierce protectiveness of someone who had fought battles Marcus couldn't imagine. Marcus raised his hand slowly, recognizing the fear in David's dark eyes. "I'm not here to take anything. I'm here because I've been looking for you for 3 years. His voice cracked on the last words. 3 years of pain and confusion bleeding through his carefully maintained composure. The airport bustled around them, but their corner felt suspended in time. David's gaze darted between Marcus's face and the legal documents scattered on the nearby chair. Documents that bore the letterhead of Morrison and Forrester, San Francisco's most prestigious family law firm. "You're fighting them," David said, his voice carrying surprise and something that might have been hope. Marcus's parents, Patricia and Charles Thompson of Beacon Hill, whose Presbyterian sensibilities and old Boston money had never quite accepted their son's path, let alone his relationship with David. Marcus nodded slowly. "Thompson Tech is now a certified B Corporation. We've established employee resource groups for LGBTQ+ staff. I came out publicly at TechCrunch Disrupt last year. The stock price went up 20% that week." His words came faster now, as if years of held explanations were finally finding their voice. But David's expression remained guarded. "You couldn't do that 3 years ago. You were engaged to Amanda Sterling. Remember the society pages called you Boston's most eligible bachelor? I was just your design consultant who stayed too late in meetings." Marcus flinched at the memory. Amanda Sterling, daughter of his parents' oldest friends, whose engagement announcement had been orchestrated without his consent while he was traveling for business. The fake relationship that had driven David away before Marcus could explain. That engagement lasted exactly 2 weeks. Marcus said quietly, "I broke it off the day I realized you were gone. I hired 3 private investigation firms to find you. I checked every design studio from Portland to Phoenix. You disappeared like you never existed." David's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted the blankets around the babies. One infant, with Marcus's blue eyes and that telltale cow lick, stirred and made a small sound. The other, with David's Korean features but Marcus's strong jaw, slept peacefully. "I couldn't stay and watch you choose their world over ours," David whispered. "Your mother made her position very clear. No Korean boys corrupting the Thompson legacy. No gay scandal ruining the family name. I received legal papers threatening my immigration status if I didn't step away quietly." Marcus felt his chest tighten with rage he'd kept buried for years. The realization that his family's cruelty had driven away the man he loved, along with children he'd never known existed, hit him like physical pain. Sometimes protecting the people we love means walking away from them. David had learned that love isn't always enough to overcome the systems designed to keep certain people apart. The revelation came slowly, like dawn breaking over the Pacific. David's voice remained steady as he explained the choice that had haunted him for 3 years. "After you announced your engagement, I used our preserved genetic material at UCSF. Dr. Sarah Kim honored our original contract, even though your family's lawyers tried to block it. The legal fees nearly bankrupted me, but I had help from the Bay Area Families for Equality Fund." Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him. His family had known. They'd known about David's pregnancy, about the children, and they'd said nothing. Worse, they'd actively tried to prevent it. "Connor," David said softly, indicating the baby with Marcus's eyes, "was born with a rare heart condition called tetralogy of Fallot. He's had 2 surgeries already, with another scheduled next month at OHSU. The medical bills are crushing. I've sold everything I owned, including my art collection from college." Marcus's throat tightened as he processed the name Connor, one they'd chosen together during those hopeful nights planning their future. The other baby stirred, revealing features that blended David's Korean heritage with Marcus's German-Irish ancestry. "And Ethan," David continued, gesturing to the second twin. "He's healthy, thank God. But Connor's condition means constant medical supervision. Portland has excellent pediatric specialists, but no insurance covers experimental treatments." The weight of 3 lost years pressed down on Marcus like a physical force. While he'd been building an empire and fighting legal battles with his parents, David had been facing life or death decisions alone. "I established a trust fund 6 months ago," Marcus said quietly. $20 million specifically for LGBTQ+ families facing medical crises. "I didn't know about Connor then, but I knew families like ours were being bankrupted by the healthcare system." David's composure finally cracked. "You can't just write a check and fix 3 years of struggle. I've been to food banks, Marcus. I've applied for government assistance. I've worked 3 freelance jobs while caring for sick children because I was too proud to ask for help from the man whose family tried to destroy me." Marcus reached toward David, then stopped himself. The privilege gap between them felt like an ocean. While Marcus had channeled his pain into building progressive business policies, David had lived the daily reality of survival that those policies were meant to address. "Your mother hired investigators to follow me for months," David continued. "They photographed me at medical appointments, documented everywhere I went with the babies. Her lawyers argued that as an unmarried immigrant, I was an unfit parent. They claimed I was using the children to extort money from your family. The cruelty was breathtaking in its calculation." Marcus realized his parents hadn't just opposed his relationship. They'd weaponized the legal system against David's vulnerability as an Asian American single parent. In that moment, Connor opened his eyes for the first time since Marcus had approached. Blue eyes identical to Marcus's own gazed up at him with the unfocused attention of an infant who'd already seen more hospitals than playgrounds. But Ethan, whose Korean features carried the strength of David's resilience, reached out tiny fingers that wrapped around Marcus's MIT class ring, the same ring Marcus had worn since graduation, the same ring David had traced during quiet Sunday mornings in their shared bed. The silence that followed was heavy with recognition. These weren't just David's children or Marcus's children. They were theirs, born from a love that had survived family opposition, legal threats, and years of separation. When systems fail the vulnerable, individual courage becomes the bridge between justice and mercy. Sometimes love isn't enough, but sometimes it's everything. The honesty that followed felt like surgery without anesthesia. Marcus pulled out his phone and showed David a photo that had been his home screen for 2 years. It was the ultrasound image Dr. Kim had given them, the first glimpse of the twins they'd created together. "I kept this," Marcus said, his voice rough with emotion. "Even when I thought you were gone forever, I couldn't delete it. I used to stare at it during board meetings, wondering what our children would have looked like." David's expression softened as he recognized the image. "Dr. Kim sent me updates about you. Even after I moved to Portland, she said you'd become one of UCSF's biggest donors, specifically to their fertility and LGBTQ+ family programs. I wondered if you were trying to help other couples avoid what happened to us." Marcus nodded slowly. "Thompson Tech partnered with GLAID in the Human Rights Campaign. We've funded legal challenges to discriminatory adoption laws in 12 states. I testified before Congress about technology's role in advancing marriage equality. The board voted me CEO of the Year, but every award felt hollow without you there. But David wasn't ready to forgive easily. You built all of this after I left. Where was this courage when I needed it? When your mother's lawyers were questioning my citizenship status, when I was fighting for basic parental rights, the question hung between them like an indictment." Marcus had transformed his pain into public advocacy, but David had lived the private hell that advocacy was meant to prevent. "I was a coward," Marcus admitted. "I thought I could protect you by keeping our relationship quiet until the IPO finished. I thought I could manage my family's expectations while building a life with you. I was wrong about everything." Connor began to fuss, the slight blue tint around his lips indicating the fatigue that came with his heart condition. David automatically shifted position, supporting Connor's breathing with practiced ease that spoke of months caring for a medically fragile child. "The next surgery is scheduled for January 15th at OHSU, David said quietly. "Dr. Angela Wu is the surgeon. She thinks Connor will need at least 2 more operations before he's 3, maybe more, depending on how his heart develops." Marcus felt something break open in his chest. "I want to be there for the surgery, for the recovery, for everything, not because I feel guilty, but because these are my children too." David studied Marcus's face for a long moment. The boy who'd once designed sustainable packaging for Marcus's company had grown into a man who'd survived challenges Marcus was only beginning to understand. "The legal situation is complicated," David said finally. "Your parents filed for grandparental rights last month. They claim I kidnapped their grandchildren by moving to Oregon without permission. Even though we were never married, never had any legal custody agreement." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Morrison and Forster thinks we can win, especially if we're co-parenting. If we present as a united family unit, their case falls apart. But that means sharing custody, sharing decisions, sharing everything." The word everything hung heavy with implication. Not just parenting duties, but the messy work of rebuilding trust between 2 people who'd loved deeply and been wounded even deeper. David's phone buzzed with a reminder. Ethan's feeding time. He began preparing a bottle with movements so natural they seemed choreographed. The routine of single parenthood he'd mastered through necessity. "I live in a studio apartment in Hawthorne," David said quietly. "The boys share a crib because I can't afford 2. I shop at grocery outlet and clip coupons for formula. This isn't your world anymore, Marcus." But as David spoke, Ethan reached again for Marcus's ring, tiny fingers persistent and sure. And Connor, despite his fatigue, seemed to settle in Marcus's presence, as if recognizing something fundamental and familiar. "The distance between who we were and who we've become doesn't have to be permanent," Marcus said softly. "If you'll let me, I want to learn your world. I want to be the father these boys deserve and the partner you needed me to be 3 years ago." True healing begins when we stop protecting our pride and start protecting what matters most. Sometimes the courage to love again is the hardest courage to find. The decision came quietly, without fanfare or grand declarations. David simply nodded and said, "Okay, we try." Marcus felt something settle in his chest, a piece that had been missing for 3 years finally sliding into place. But this wasn't a fairy tale reunion. This was two damaged people choosing to build something new from the wreckage of what they'd lost. The practical conversations that followed revealed the complexity ahead. David would relocate to the Bay Area, but slowly on buy-in, Marcus would cover Connor's medical expenses, but David would maintain equal decision-making authority. They'd attend family therapy with Dr. James Rodriguez in this Castro, a specialist in LGBTQ+ family reunification. Morrison and Forster was confident about the custody case. Massachusetts courts were increasingly unwilling to grant grandparental rights against biological parents' wishes, especially when discrimination was a factor. The Thompson family's documented harassment of David would work against them. At Gate 15, United Flight 47 began boarding. Marcus had upgraded all of them to first class, a gesture that would have felt condescending 3 years ago, but now felt like simple care. As they gathered their belongings, Connor stirred in Marcus's arms. The baby's hand found Marcus's thumb and gripped it with surprising strength for such a small person. In that moment, Marcus understood something fundamental about fatherhood that no amount of money or success could have taught him. David shouldered his worn backpack, the one that contained everything he owned that mattered. 3 years of survival had taught him to travel light, to value what couldn't be taken away. The flight attendant, a man wearing a small rainbow pin, smiled at them as they boarded. "Welcome aboard," he said quietly. "Safe travels home." Home. The word felt new in Marcus's mouth, different from the empty penthouse he'd been returning to for years. Home wasn't a place anymore. It was David's laugh when Ethan babbled nonsense. It was Connor's peaceful breathing when his heart wasn't working too hard. It was the possibility of Sunday mornings that smelled like coffee and sounded like family. As the plane lifted off over San Francisco Bay, Marcus could see the Golden Gate Bridge through the small window, its orange towers emerging from the morning fog. Beside him, David dozed with Ethan against his shoulder, while Connor slept peacefully in Marcus's lap. They weren't the same people who'd fallen in love 5 years ago. They were scarred, wiser, carrying wounds that would take time to heal. But they were choosing each other anyway, choosing the messy work of building a family from love and legal briefs and medical appointments. The baby slept between them, bridges across the gulf of hurt and time. And for the first time in 3 years, Marcus believed in tomorrow. Love doesn't erase the past, but it can write a different future. Have you ever had to choose between your family and your truth? Share your story below. Subscribe to Heart Stories for more tales of courage, love, and second chances that remind us family isn't just who we're born to, but who we choose to keep.